Okay, hi. Welcome once again to Buddhist Fellowship. Can I just find out how many of you have, this is the 8th talk now, how many of you have missed the previous 6 talks or something? Can I have a show of hands? Okay. Because I had some feedback earlier that I may have been losing the audience a bit for my previous talk. Because some of the things there were a bit advanced or something. So that's the problem, you see. As I move on these talks, they get more and more advanced. And it requires preferably some knowledge of the topics beforehand to get to grasp with what's going on. So we are at the 8th talk now. This whole series of talks is actually based on the Noble Eightfold Path as a format. So we have the gradual path from the first step all the way now to the 8th step. So this is in a way the last step of the Noble Eightfold Path. Experiencing stillness, I'm going to talk about right concentration. Before we go on to that, it's good to recap, I guess, the previous factors that have all gone by to remind all of you again, for those who have missed the previous talks, how each of these steps incrementally lead to this 8th step of right concentration. In the beginning, we start off with right view, the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. And what is right view? Right view is the intellectual understanding of karma and rebirth. That good begets good, bad begets bad. If you don't behave yourself well enough this life, the next life you're going to get it. If you behave yourself well enough in this life, the next life you're going to get it good. That's an important starting step because that sets the purpose for walking this spiritual path. In the beginning, it's just intellectual, it's a belief. But the noble ones, those who are enlightened, who have seen their past lives, and you can see future lives as well, tell us there is karma, there is rebirth. We have seen it for ourselves. There is the result of good actions done, there's the result of bad actions done. So pay heed to the words of the wise and walk the spiritual path. So that's right view, to set the purpose of walking this path correctly. The next factor, right intention, is to set the right attitude in walking this spiritual path. And that is thoughts of renunciation, loving kindness, compassion. And I've also brought in the 4 Brahma Viharas, the kind of mind states that create beautiful mind states that create a beautiful mind right here and now and a beautiful life for yourself and for others around you. Loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity. So all these we can put it under right intention, the right attitude, the right mindset that we have when we walk this path. With that, we go on to ethics. The next 3 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right speech, right action, right livelihood have to do with ethics. And it's interesting that in Buddhism, we don't put the ethics right at the beginning in that sense. For the Eightfold Path, we set the purpose and the intention right. Because for ethics to be valid, you must start off with from the right place in the heart. You must start off from thoughts of kindness, love, letting go. And that's what propels ethics in the right direction. So, for right speech, we have abstaining from lying, abstaining from harsh speech, abstaining from divisive speech, abstaining from idle chatter. So we cultivate the opposites as well. So we tell the truth, we speak gently, we have speech that brings about concord and harmony, and we use speech that is beneficial and useful for other people. In this context of the Eightfold Path, is speech that makes people better people. Don't talk stuff that makes people worse people. They get their minds engaged in unwholesome, unhealthy stuff. So that's right speech. And what is right action? Right action is abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual misconduct. So of course the opposite of that would be to promote life, preserve life, to be generous, and also to have loyalty in relationships, and also to promote relationships, stable relationships. That's under right action. And right livelihood, offhand I cannot remember the 5 parts of right livelihood, but basically abstaining from certain traits that would bring about harm to yourself and other people, which include trading in poisons, intoxicants, can't remember offhand the list. Poisons, intoxicants, butchery, weapons, as well as trading in beings. Trading in beings would include things like trading livestock to be slaughtered, trading in slaves, trading in prostitutes, being a pimp, in other words. So that would fall under wrong livelihood, things that we should avoid. So right livelihood is the opposite. Whatever else doesn't fall under this 5, that would be considered right livelihood. Enough. That covers the first 5 factors of Noble Eightfold Path. The 6th factor is right effort. And right effort, in short, is basically to cultivate what is good and to put in effort to cultivate what is good and to put in effort to abandon what is not good, what is bad. So that essentially is right effort. So right effort, you apply it to the previous 5 factors that have already gone by. You do your best to really work yourself on these previous 5 factors. And also with regards to meditation, because right effort itself launches one into meditation to abandon what we call the 5 hindrances. 5 hindrances are basically obstructors of wisdom, things that occur most clearly in meditation. The 5 hindrances can be seen in one's daily life as well, but they usually have the strongest effect or the most noticeable in one's meditation. They are the things that disturb one's meditation, prevents one from getting deep into concentration and wisdom. So we try to abandon the 5 hindrances. The 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, which means like drowsiness, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So these are the 5 hindrances to be abandoned. And then we talk about right mindfulness after that. Right mindfulness already is meditation practice. So we talked about it last week. Basically being aware with clarity on what's going on in one's body, what's going on in one's feelings, what's going on in one's mind, and the various mind objects that the mind can apprehend. So that's right mindfulness. Okay, so that's a recap of the previous 7 factors of the Eightfold Path. Now I go on to this really difficult topic. Last week's topic was bad enough. In fact, I find my talk pretty choppy last week. This week, I hope I do it a bit more justice. But this is going to be more like an intro to you guys about what right concentration is. What is right concentration? Samma Samadhi. Ajahn Brahm translates concentration as stillness. That's probably a better adjective for the states one experiences. Right stillness, where the mind is still. Now, what is right concentration or right stillness? The Buddha defines it as the 4 jhanas. The word jhana has had many translations by various English authors, and they've all been very inadequate. Probably the best translation of the term is probably absorption, but that doesn't come close to the word jhana. The word jhana in Pali actually means a state of meditation, literally. It doesn't tell you much more what jhana itself is. The English adjective absorption probably comes closest to describing what the state of jhana is. This absorption, this kind of stickness, kind of one-pointedness, completely engrossed and absorbed in one's meditation object. That is called a jhana. That's what the word absorption means. So the 4 jhanas mean 4 different levels of absorption of the mind, 4 different levels of stillness of the mind. The first jhana will be the coarsest, will be the coarsest of the absorptions, not that absorbed, or the 4th would be the highest. As you go higher up, the absorption is more brighter, more powerful. Now, why is it important? Why are these jhanas important? Firstly, one attains the jhanas only after having overcome the 5 hindrances I have mentioned. And the 5 hindrances in many places, the Buddha says, are the obstructors of wisdom, weakeners of wisdom, and increases one's defilements. To attain a jhana is to clear one of the 5 hindrances. So once one becomes really clear and sharp, we can see the jhanas as the opposite of the 5 hindrances. And in other places in the suttas, very often the Eightfold Path itself is extended to what we call a Tenfold Path. After right concentration, there is right knowledge and right liberation. In other suttas as well, samadhi, stillness or concentration, precedes knowledge and vision of the way things really are. And that itself also precedes liberation and true knowledge. So one can see from the suttas already that concentration, stillness, samadhi is a necessary component for wisdom to occur. Without sufficient samadhi, sufficient stillness of the mind, you're not going to have wisdom. You can be the nicest guy in town, really great to your kids, great to your colleagues, the best boss you can ever be. You can read all the Buddhist texts as well and really know what Buddhism is, from the books at least, and live a good life. Then you've already fulfilled at least the virtue aspect of the path. But without the samadhi, concentration aspect, you cannot pierce on towards wisdom. You cannot really understand the heartwood, the core of the Buddha's teachings without going on to samadhi. In fact, one should see virtue as the tool towards samadhi. Not so much as virtue as an end in itself, but virtue as a tool that leads to concentration and stillness. And the stillness itself as a tool that leads to wisdom. And wisdom is the tool that leads one finally to true happiness, to enlightenment. So these are all just means to an end, which is complete happiness of enlightenment, the complete wisdom of enlightenment. So one leads to the other. The way Ajahn Brahm puts it is that right concentration basically stills the mind enough so that one's mind power is super enhanced. And when one puts one's mindfulness on anything you observe, it will bore its way down and really understand what one is observing. Ajahn Brahm calls this superpower mindfulness. So yeah, you can do right mindfulness, for example. You can have awareness and clarity with regards to your body, your feelings, your mind, and your mind objects. But it's often not very clear. In daily life, we are very distracted by our duties, by our wandering thoughts, by our worries. So we need to still one's mind with the jhanas to enable this mindfulness, this mind power to become collected, so that when we practice right mindfulness, go with the right mindfulness, and then we will really understand reality, see through things, and become enlightened. So now we are not talking about something that's mundane, we're talking about something that's quite out of this world. So it can get a bit abstract. I seek your forgiveness if you all may not really understand what I'm going to say next. And of course, Q&A, please ask as many questions as you all want to. So let's go on to the practical aspect first. How does one develop this jhana? How does one develop this? Before I go on to 4 jhanas, they are very abstract. I go on to how does one develop jhana. So in short, how does one develop meditation? So of course it's useful to know the Buddhist text well enough, come for such talks, discuss with people, know what Buddhism is about, and seek a good teacher who's experienced in meditation. In this case, it's not good enough to get a teacher who's good in book knowledge. It's, according to Paul Sayadaw, which I will agree with, it's not impossible to practice meditation correctly by reading the books alone, but it's very difficult. Because books are still on the level of conceptual thinking. And we are all, great when it comes to studying and writing essays and so on. How to be happy, we don't really know. And meditation is a path of letting go, going right down to the heart. Very often, the words in the book often cloud one's mind rather than shed wisdom. So after you read enough, you have to throw the books away literally and find a teacher who's really experienced in this path of meditation to guide you. So you should be shopping around and looking for experienced teachers who meditate well and who also live their lives by example, by good example, and train under them. In the suttas and commentaries, there are up to 40 meditation objects that one can choose from. The list is pretty mind-boggling. 40 objects. Wow, what do I choose? So many things to shop from. So the most common technique, or the 2 most common techniques that you all may have heard of, one is mindfulness of breathing, that's what we did just now, more or less, and loving kindness meditation. These are 2 objects, 2 meditation subjects out of the 40. In the Visuddhimagga and the commentaries, these 40 objects are arranged according to the personality type. So according to what personality type you are, certain objects suit you better because they counteract your defilements and they actually increase your strengths. So there are 7 personality types. There is the greedy type, the lustful greedy type. There is the hateful angry type. There is the confused scattered type. There's the faithful type. Faithful meaning having a lot of faith in goodness, a lot of faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And there's the wise, intelligent type, the one who can really not just being smart, but who's sharp enough to be able to understand and know things the way they are. So there are these 5 broad personality types, and these 40 objects are arranged according to these 5 categories. So for the lustful, greedy type, the meditation that's recommended to them are the 10 types of rotting corpses. So last week I talked about mindfulness of the body. I mentioned the rotting corpses meditation. So there are 10 rotting corpses and plus 1, 32 parts of the body. Being aware that your body is made out of many component organs and that you don't really own them and that they're perishable and that the liver, the spleen and the heart don't really look that great after all. Or feel that great after all. So these are the 11 objects prescribed to the greedy, lustful type. For the anger type, angry type, there are 4 plus 4, 8 objects prescribed to them. The 4 colored kasinas and the 4 Brahma Viharas. 4 colored kasinas meaning the red color, the yellow color, the white color, and the brown color. Brown or blue, doesn't really matter. I won't go too deep into that, but basically kasina in this case meaning you visualize, you have a color, red color for example, you put a red color disc in front of you, and you put your mind on the object, red, 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 and visualize the red in your mind. After a while, it's get really deep into this red, you don't need the object anymore. Your mind just creates that red color very clearly there, and the red color gets brighter, bigger, and it expands in all directions. So these are the kasina meditations with color. And then the 4 Brahma Viharas are actually the 4 objects I mentioned just now: loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity. So as you can see already, even if you don't understand how the 4 colored kasinas help the angry type, you can already see how the 4 Brahma Viharas help the angry type. Loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, equanimity are all designed to put down this repulsiveness, to put down this ill will in a person's mind. Straight away you can see that for yourselves. 1 object for the speculative, scattered, confused mind: mindfulness of breathing. 1 object. For the faithful type, the 6 recollections are recommended for the faithful type. Recollection of the Buddha, recollection of the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha, recollection on generosity, on virtue, and on the Devas. So as you can see, these 6 things play on the positive aspect. So if you have a lot of faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, you will naturally feel very inclined to practice such meditations. They reinforce your faith as you reflect deeper and deeper on the goodness of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Similarly, on the qualities of generosity and on virtue. And how does the Deva come in? The Devas basically are the angels, kind of like angels or celestial beings that are reborn in these higher realms because of their good karma, their goodness that they have practiced in previous lives. So again, one reflects on the virtues of these Devas. And if one reflects on oneself, I also have the virtues that can lead me to a future Deva rebirth. And one is gladdened and happy. And one also reflects that all these Devas are good beings and that they are results of good actions. One should be inspired by these good beings around us. So that's how one does the recollection of the Devas, for example. So these 6 objects for the faithful type. The 4 objects for the wise, intelligent type. The 4 objects are 4 elements meditation, perception of the loathsomeness of food, recollection of death, recollection of peace. 4 elements meditation is basically going into the components of matter, the earth element, air element, fire element, water element. I won't go too deep into that, that's another whole big topic by itself. Perception of the loathsomeness of food. What goes in, no matter how nice it is, comes like shit. That's it. So you just reflect on that. Okay. And then with recollection of death. All beings have to die. All beings fall ill and die. I too am subject to death. So Ajahn Chatamalo has this interesting mantra he does when he does walking meditation. What is it? With the left step, he reflects, I will die. That's for sure. I will die, that's for sure. I will die, that's for sure. So that's one other way of doing recollection of death. So if you keep the thought of death, of impending death in oneself, and that helps to spur on spiritual urgency. And the last object of this four is recollection of peace. It's recollection of the peace of Nibbana. But for all of us who have not seen Nibbana for ourselves, it's just a concept of peace for us. So the closest we can do is just feel how nice it is to be unattached, how nice it is to be perhaps the feeling you get when you're on the beach without any work to do, without your spouse or your children harrying you, you're just by yourself relaxing. That's the closest maybe one can get. Or if you've had good meditations before, when you're very secluded, quiet, alone, and get into very nice deep states, and these can be reflections on Nibbana is even more sublime than that, and one extrapolates it further and dwells in this recollection of peace. How nice is Nibbana going to be? Of course, if one has already visualized Nibbana, meaning if one is a stream enter and beyond, then Nibbana becomes very clear. The peace is a real piece of Nibbana, no longer just a concept, but you know it and your meditation is deeper with this object as well. So you can already see, for example, mindfulness of death is good for the wise person because he understands the value of death. He's not going to get too shaken by it, but spurs him on to practice. But if you put this mindfulness of death into a hateful, angry person, not going to work. Just like, for example, there were many monks in the Buddha's time. At one point when the Buddha taught the corpse meditations, a lot of the monks committed suicide. And they got another monk to actually, those who didn't dare to kill themselves got another monk to kill them. Because a lot of these monks were filled with a lot of disgust and hatred at their body. So they were not of the right personality type to do this corpse meditations. And then when the Buddha came out of his 3-month retreat, if I'm not wrong, he said, "Oh, Ananda, that's interesting. How come there are only half the monks present than before when I went for my retreat?" Then Ananda said, "Oh, these monks were distressed by this corpse meditations and they got this other monk to kill them." So the Buddha said, "Oh dear, come. So he called all the monks, gave them a scolding of sorts, and then that was the time when he let down one of the rules of expulsion. If any monk were to kill a human being intentionally, that monk would be forever out of the Sangha. He can never ordain again as a monk for their entire life. So that's the origin story for the third Parajika. But that aside, after the Buddha told off all the monks, he then taught them mindfulness of breathing. And they all were quite happy after that. So that may have been the origin for the mindfulness of breathing that the Buddha taught. So you can see this, you don't want to cross objects. You better know yourself well enough, or your teacher should know you well enough and prescribe the object for you accordingly. But mindfulness of breathing seems to be the most, the safest and the most universally effective, in the sense that most people can get some way or get some progress in mindfulness of breathing. So that's the method usually taught first. And hey, all of us breathe anyway, Try to find something that's red in color, paint it red. Then a lot of trouble to just paint something red or blue and put it there and visualize red, blue. Or take a piece of earth and then, earth or something, But breath is there all the time, so it's just there. You can just use it as and when you want to use it. To finish off these 40 objects, to complete it, there are these 10 other objects that can be used for anybody else as well. For completeness sake, I will mention them. They are the 4 elemental kasinas, the earth, water, fire, wind, the light kasina, space kasina, as well as the 4 arupas, the perception of boundless space, boundless consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception. Just to complete these 40 objects. If you forget this part, doesn't really matter. Just to give an overview of the 40 objects of meditation. So anyway, having chosen a good teacher, having read the text enough so that you don't get bluffed by the teacher trying to pull you along, do a fast one on you. You then have enough faith and you practice under this teacher. The only meditation object I have some experience with is the breath. So I'll talk a bit about the breath. How one practices mindfulness of breathing. So basically, mindfulness of breathing, one just pays continual attention to the in and out breath. It's really as simple and as difficult as that. You all can see for yourself how difficult it is to keep one's mind on the breath. One's mind always runs off in something else, your thoughts or your body. But that's where the right effort comes in. You continually pull your mind back to your breath. Again, as one pulls your mind back to your breath with all distractions, don't develop this ill will. Stupid thoughts, stupid body. No, that's ill will. That's the second hindrance. So just, my mind is like that. I forgive you, mind. Come back to my breath. Okay. Run off again. Oh, you ran off again. Oh, don't worry. Pat your head. Come back. The breath again. So one must always be really gentle and sweet with your mind. Understand your mind is like a little child, a little dog that's ill-disciplined, ill-trained. You use a cane, beat, 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 beat. You will just get rebellious. At the most, if you use fear, it works for a while. Just like when you train a child, when you train a dog, you use fear, it really does work for a while. But once the dog or the child grows a certain size, you can be sure they're going to rebel. Really, because they haven't seen the value of what you're trying to teach them. They have just listened to you out of fear for you, not out of respect, not out of wisdom. They will rebel against you. Same thing as your breath. Those of you who have been for earlier talks, I've mentioned how I myself have used this control. The mind runs off to the thought, pull it back again, you stay, watch. Or I use this other method called shooting down the wandering thoughts. Bad idea, never do that. Shoot. Anything that's bad, shoot. Push down. Like you know that particular game, I think it's called Gopher, right? Gopher. Anything comes out, boom, like that, no? Gopher, no? So that's the attitude I had with my mind and my meditation. That was bad news. A lot of ill will generated. Again, the mind listens to you out of fear for a while. Okay, it behaves, sticks on the breath. Hey, I'm getting some progress here, but doesn't take long. 5 days or 6 days, you'll feel it getting very tight. The mind doesn't want to stay. The mind is getting very restless and agitated, and it just causing all kinds of tensions and tightness anywhere you put it. So, take my word for it. Never start off with ill will first. Get it right. Be as gentle as you can, sayang as you can. That's why Ajahn Brahm's method is good. Ajahn Brahm emphasizes a lot on the attitude that one watches the breath with. Sayang, forgiveness, stroke. Okay, come back. Your reward will be the eventual joy and bliss that you find with the breath. Come back. If you don't have enough faith in that, never mind. You just sit for 1 hour and you feel a sense of achievement is for 1 hour. At the very least, you play yourself up. So you find all kinds of incentives to go back to the breath again and again, gently. With time, you will definitely get more mindful of the breath. With time, you will learn to appreciate and enjoy the breath. It has to happen because that is the cause for it. By bringing it back again and again, gently. So you must have faith in the results, in the causes. You must have faith in the cause for concentration, which is right effort. Bring it back again and again and again and again, gently. After a while, when you begin to enjoy and appreciate the breath, so like just now how I always end off my meditation, I always tell you to reflect on how peaceful you feel after the sit than before you started. You will realize if you do this sincerely that no matter how disturbed your meditation was, all kinds of restless thoughts, pains and so on, and these thoughts and pains are magnified when you sit compared to in your waking daily moments. The reason being very simple. In your waking daily moments, you are distracted. Your mind is pushed to 5-6 different places. You never had time to notice the pains and the tensions you had in yourself. But when you finally sit still, for even just 5 or 10 minutes, all the rubbish comes out in your mind. Wow. You never knew so much rubbish. You never knew so much pain and tensions. Then you begin to think, sitting is so difficult. How come in my daily life I never feel such pains, but now when I sit, I feel the pains? Be glad you feel the pains when you sit. It's telling you that you have a lot of rubbish. The lid is removed, everything's all coming out now. This is the time for a mental and physical detox. Even with such disturbed meditation, when you finish your sit, no matter how long it is, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half hour, 1 hour, whatever, you will feel, if you sincerely ask yourself, hey, am I better off now than before I started? The answer will always be a yes. Always. Without fail. That is why meditation is only good, no bad. It's only good in meditation, it's no bad. So this is where one slowly generates the faith that, it does work, bit by bit. And when you are persistent enough and understand the 5 hindrances, don't watch the breath out of desire. I want the nimitta, I want the jhana. Well, sure, no, it will never happen. Or, I don't like my wandering thoughts, I push them, I go for them. You avoid these extremes. Gently put back on the breath with right attention, just being with the breath. Have the faith that the conditions for your future stillness of mind are going to be there. Just watch it gently, peacefully. And then bit by bit, you build up the wall of peace, brick by brick by brick by brick. And you'll reach this stage called the beautiful breath, where you'll find that this breath, when you watch it, is so delightful. When you watch it, joy in, joy out, joy in, joy out, joy in, joy out. Almost as if the breath and the joy are one. The feeling of joy, wow, so nice, in, feels really good, out, feels really good, in, out, in, out. So your mind is beginning to get deeper into the breath. You appreciate the breath more and more. At that stage also, because there's happiness with the breath, your wandering thoughts tend to be less. Your pains in your body tend to be less. For simple reason, for example, you're watching a TV, you're already absorbed into that TV program, you're already happy watching it. Even if you have pains, even if somebody hits you on the, maybe your mom or your wife calls you, hey, time for dinner, you also don't ignore watching your favorite soccer program or something. Happiness glues to the TV screen, you block out everything else. Your TV screen becomes your universe. Same thing, the joyful breath will become your universe. It's so nice to watch. Your mind just naturally goes on to it. It just blocks out everything else. Because you're happily engrossed in it, everything else fades away. So the joyful breath is the time when you begin to feel that watching the breath is effortless. As long as there's joy there, watching the breath becomes effortless. And as Ajahn Brahm likes to remind us again and again, the suttas always state, happiness leads to samadhi. Happiness leads to concentration. Happiness is a precursor to concentration. So if you are there spending hours, I'm watching my breath, stoic, tough, really getting the breath under your control, you will never get stillness. Never. Not in a million years. That's just playing up the second hindrance of ill will. And the second hindrance of ill will just spill itself out into restlessness, and the restlessness will just make you daydream and fantasize about sensual desires. And then when you daydream long enough, you get sleepy and fall asleep. And then all the 5 hindrances will just play itself up again and again and again in this kind of cycle. So, watch it really gently, peacefully. And the stillness will come by itself when you have let go enough of this controller, this control freak that wants to make the breath do its will. When you don't do anything to the breath, just let the breath be, it will settle down on its own. Your mind will settle down on its own as well with the breath. Around this time, some people perceive a light that arises. This is what we call a nimitta. So the shape, the color, the way it appears doesn't really matter, but you just begin to notice something strange happening. I have had some friends, very interestingly, who have had no meditation experience previously, but they have gone for talks by some very good monks. And then at least one female friend of mine told me, hey, I saw some flashing lights go by just now. I opened my eyes, I didn't see, nothing went by. Close my eyes, it comes again, and my heart seems to open up each time the light flashes. Is this that light you were telling me about previously? I was very surprised because she had no meditation experience. She's not a Buddhist, but it so happened that she had this phenomena. So this is what we call a nimitta. The nimitta, the light, is a reflection of the mind, of the happy and still mind. The simpler and more stable the nimitta is, the more stable and purer your mind is. So a flashing light, there's some mindfulness and joy there, wholesome joy, but it's not stable. It, like flashing or something, The really good, the really stable, pure ones are the ones which are very, unfortunately, I've not really seen. Okay, I may have encountered in my personal experience some instances of a really stable nimitta, but I messed it up. So anyway, but basically it feels really nice, it's bright, and it's steady, stable, and feels very good. Okay, let's see. Apparently, from some other meditators I talked to, some people don't experience the nimitta as a light, but just as a feeling of bliss and happiness, And according to some meditators, one can get into a state of jhana without the light. Ajahn Brahm, in his book Happiness Through Meditation, actually states that one can get into a jhana with the light nimitta, or the feeling nimitta, feeling but without the light. But it's harder to do so with the feeling nimitta. So this is Ajahn Brahm's words from the book. Other meditators have apparently gotten into jhanas with these feeling nimittas without a light. But whatever it is, this is all so-called higher level stuff. Just know that there are all such permutations possible. My main point in saying this is, Many times you go for retreats, but have you seen the light? Have you seen the light? And you get all flustered and frustrated. Shit, I've not seen the light yet. I better work harder, put in more hours. People are sitting up so straight, sitting there for the last 1-2 hours. Maybe they're seeing the light. Why haven't I seen the light yet? I better sit longer. And ill will, sensual desire. This is what the hindrances are. It builds up, makes it worse and worse. What I'm trying to tell you here is, while these things can happen, don't be surprised if they occur. But if they don't occur, it's okay. It's a natural process. It happens by itself, bit by bit. Don't get caught up in this Singaporean mentality. I compare you, you compare me, and then people begin to sometimes manufacture nimitta. I think I saw a light. Yeah, I think it's blue or it's red or something, you know. Have you seen the light? Have you seen the light? Yeah, I think I saw this small little speck somewhere. You're going to manufacture and imagine nimitta. So that's always a dangerous thing. So very often when we talk about such things, we're also very afraid, that people will begin to manufacture or imagine a nimitta out of the whole thing. So this is why Ajahn Brahm is very careful. Ajahn Brahm's definition of a nimitta is a very clear, stable one. When that clear, stable one occurs, your mind must be very at peace and very happy at that time. And by that time this occurs, the body will have disappeared. Your 5 senses would also have been shut down sufficiently that it doesn't disturb you. You can turn away easily from the 5 senses and put your mind on that nimitta. So Ajahn Brahm's definition of a nimitta is that gold standard nimitta. That one, there's no doubt that is the nimitta. For other teachers, even the smoky light coming out can be a nimitta. That's a very beginning stage. And you make, hey, did I see a nimitta? Did I? Whatever. So Ajahn Brahm cuts short the chase. Forget it. Those are not real nimittas. Junk that out the window. Just watch your breath all the way till that bright, stable one occurs. That one cannot manufacture. That one, it's so bloody obvious you cannot miss it. It's so bloody obvious you just cannot miss it. You cannot imagine that one. That one is out of this world, so you cannot imagine it, And it will be very alien to your usual experience of light, brightness, and happiness. The happiness of that nimitta at that time, the happiness is born out of letting go. It's a completely different flavor and a completely different intensity from the happiness one experiences in normal daily life. So you cannot mistake that as something else. That is something really special. You just cannot miss it, basically. No way. However, on this feeling of bliss, one must be careful about this feeling of bliss in the sense that sometimes you get lulled into feeling that this feeling of bliss is so nice, and then you just get attached to it. What happens is you lose your object of meditation and you just focus on the peace. And very soon you are asleep. And that's not meditation anymore. Or you may not fall asleep, but you fall into this state, what we call a bhavanga state, where it's like a deep sleep. You blank out for don't know how many moments, then you wake up, that was nice, but I blanked out for that time, and that blanking out was very nice, But that is not meditation anymore. You have missed the point. You're supposed to watch that breath till it develops into this very nice, clear, beautiful and alert, beautiful, happy and alert mental state, not a state of drowsiness. So this state of very subtle sleepiness can be mistaken to be a good state. Now, it is a good state in the sense that you must have sufficient mindfulness to have gotten there in the first place. If not, you will just be falling asleep like this. That's the usual cause of falling asleep. That way of falling asleep I'm talking about, usually you're quite still, but the breath has disappeared and you can't really catch the breath anymore. The breath is so soft and subtle because the mindfulness is so nice, it's so strong. The breath disappears. You can't really feel it anymore. And then you just feel, nothing there. It's so nice, so happy. Maybe this is nibbana. Maybe this is enlightenment. And then you blank out without knowing that you blank out. So that's a bhavanga state. And Ajahn Brahm calls it a cul-de-sac. It's a French word, cul-de-sac. It's like a dead end, you cannot progress with this sort of subtle drowsiness. So all teachers of all traditions advise when you hit that state, recognize what it is, snap out of it, go back to watching the breath or whatever object you're using again. Okay, so with regards to breath meditation, so first one watches the physical breath, in, out, in, out, in, out. And one is to continually pay attention to it and keep away from all the distractions coming up at you. Just go back to your breath again and again. When your mind and breath become sufficiently still and comfortable with each other, joy will arise. And this joy naturally sticks your mind to the breath. And it gets nicer, stronger, and smoother. The light begins to occur around the same time. Body begins to disappear. The the nimitta and the breath become one, and the mind watches everything as one. The breath would have disappeared, the nimitta replaces, and one watches the nimitta, and then one gets into a state of jhana. So this is like roughly how it happens. But let me say categorically, I have not experienced a jhana, at least not in this life yet. So this is what I have heard, and some experience before that to know that I can extrapolate it far enough, know that yeah, this is probably how it ends up. You know? This is where some meditators may have a disagreement with Ajahn Brahm. Ajahn Brahm states categorically that all the five senses shut down completely when one enters a jhana. He always states that again and again. You cannot see, smell, taste, touch within a jhana. It's completely shut down. But for many meditators, they find that when they attain to a jhana, it's not that they cannot perceive the five senses, but that their minds are so into this nimitta, into this jhana state, that even if they hear a sound, very quickly they can go back to that nimitta again, very effortlessly. You can feel perhaps around you there is five senses operating, there are sounds and so on operating, but you don't get turned on by them. You keep on absorbed onto this nimitta. Only in the fourth jhana, for these meditators, they find that the sound really is almost non-existent, like almost as if a muffler is placed over the ears. So that's according to at least two meditators that I've talked to. But Ajahn Brahm, I didn't really discuss with him much more on this point. To him, categorically, your five senses must be completely shut down in the jhana state. But what he means by complete shutdown, again, I do not know. I've not asked him deep enough. But again, one can see that there's a whole spectrum of experiences, even with regards to the jhana. There's no one gold standard description of a jhana. There's a general guideline for what the first jhana is. I will describe to you what the general guideline according to suttas is. There's just one general guideline, but the actual experience of it obviously differs from person to person as well. And the spectrum and the depth of even each jhana will differ from person to person, event to event. So you need a good teacher who is experienced enough, who has tasted himself or herself the various spectrum of depth of each jhana. So when he asks you, how are you doing? You say, oh, I experienced this. The teacher will know straight away what jhana you are in and how deep your jhana is, and whether the teacher feels, in their opinion, whether or not that is good enough to move on to vipassana practice, move on to the wisdom practice. Or they may say, okay, you can get deeper into this stillness first. You need more stillness before I let you go on to the wisdom practices. So it's according to the teacher's preferences. And obviously each teacher is going to be different. Because even if they have experienced jhana for themselves, each of them will have different experiences and different depths of the jhana and different experiences with the wisdom practices. So you're going to expect that all of them will have some variation. So it might be confusing if you go around teacher shopping as well. So you do need to read the books enough and build up your own personal experience to be able to take the best from each teacher you go to. For myself, it's very clear. Only the Buddha can be my sole teacher. Otherwise, I have at least two. In this lifetime at least, Ajahn Brahm and Sayadaw Dipankara, my two main teachers this lifetime. But I can have also many other teachers. I have many other friends from my teachers as well. Only the Buddha can be one. So it will be wise for yourself, while you want to have enough faith in a teacher, but once you practice for yourself, you need to open your ears and listen to what other practitioners and other teachers have to say about this practice, and slowly walk along this path, absorbing the best from each person. So that's why I find that the guru worship of the Tibetan tradition a bit dangerous. You put your faith, all your money and bucks into one teacher. Not that the teacher is bad, but the teacher is incomplete, where it's only his personal experience. You mean you're not going to learn from anybody else? So you should be open from learning from everybody else as well. Because only the Buddha is one. Otherwise, even the Arahat only has one aspect. It's not a complete teacher. It has reached enlightenment, but it's not a complete teacher knowing everything. So you need to learn from different arahats, different anagamis, different enlightened people, different spiritual friends, different spiritual teachers. Okay, I will go on into the formulaic description of each of the four jhanas. So now, listen. Okay, so the four jhanas. The first jhana, with the quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. One enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. This is the standard description of the first jhana in the suttas. There's nothing more than that. That's all there is. What does it mean? Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, one enters upon and abides in the first jhana. Secluded from sensual pleasures, the five senses, you have turned away from them. You do not care about them much anymore. You don't care about them. Quite secluded from unwholesome states, which means secluded from the five hindrances. So the prerequisite for the first jhana, to be really into it, is you must have lost the interest for the five senses and this body, at least temporarily. And by that, you also lose interest in the five hindrances. They have no power over you temporarily. Then one enters and abides in this state called the first jhana, which is characterized by applied, sustained thought, rapture, and pleasure born of seclusion. When one comes out of a jhana and one checks one's heart, one's mind, to find out what jhana was I in, there are five specific factors for the first jhana. Initial application of thought, sustained application of thought, rapture, bliss, and one-pointedness of mind. Each of these have a particular flavor. When one checks and sees mental factors in consciousness, some people talk about seeing. My feeling is it's a feeling. You feel it with your mind. So applied initial application of thought is the mind moving to the nimitta, to the object. This initial application of thought. Sustained application of thought is something like this, the feeling. Rapture is happiness at this object. Happiness, you feel the happiness at this object. The bliss is this feeling good but not so exuberant. It's the One-pointedness of mind is the mind just really stuck onto it, see. So let's talk about rapture and I'll talk about rapture and bliss later. So that's the first jhana. Then the second jhana we have, with the stilling of applied and sustained thought, one enters upon and abides in the second jhana, which has internal confidence and singleness of mind without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of concentration. So one sees the dangers and the fact that the first jhana is quite coarse as compared to the second jhana. Difference between first and second jhana, the second jhana does away with this initial applied thought and sustained thought. It does away with these things. So Ajahn Brahm describes it as rock solid bliss, rock solid joy. As this formula says, with rapture and pleasure born of concentration. Whereas for the first jhana is rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. So for first jhana, the rapture and pleasure are born out of abandoning the five senses and the body. But for the second jhana, this rapture and joy are born out of samadhi, born out of stillness. So it's a more still state compared to the first jhana. What's the first jhana? There's still some movement of the mind. What is the movement of the mind in the first jhana? That applied thought and sustained thought. That's the movement of the mind. As Ajahn Brahm describes it, when one becomes confident that one can watch this bliss, watch this nimitta, and experience this state without having to go to it anymore, you drop the applied thought and the sustained thought. It just stays there and you're watching it. So there's bliss, but it's more solid, it's not wavering. There's some wavering in the first jhana, but second jhana, the bliss is not wavering. That's how Ajahn Brahm would describe it. You read his book, Happiness Through Meditation. Okay, we go on to the... so the second jhana, there are three factors. So you minus, rapture, bliss, one-pointedness of mind. So there's no applied thought, there's no sustained thought, as I've said. So in the third jhana, you lose even more stuff. With the fading away of rapture, one abides in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. Still feeling pleasure, one enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which the noble ones declare, he has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. So the key thing about the third jhana as compared to the second is that in the third jhana, that rapture fades away. That exuberant joy, I call it joy actually, that joy is dropped, leaving only the bliss and this one-pointedness of mind, these two factors in the third jhana. According to Ajahn Brahm, it's only in the third jhana that one can differentiate between the rapture and the bliss, because previously they were all conjoined. Our experience of happiness has always been piti sukha, rapture and bliss conjoined together, but only in the third jhana they separate out. So you can, by inference, I felt the bliss of the second jhana was quite different from the bliss of the third jhana. And you reflect, so that's the difference between bliss and rapture bliss. And you can, by inference, tell what rapture is and what bliss is. Again, you don't think it, you feel it. you feel the difference between your experience of rapture bliss and bliss alone. So you know what rapture feels like and what bliss feels like. That's how Ajahn Brahm describes it. But I think even before one reaches that stage, one can already have a fair appreciation of the difference between rapture and bliss. One analogy I like to give is this. I'm sure you all will catch it. Imagine on a very hot day you're going shopping in Orchard Road, and these last few days have been very hot, so it's very hot, you're sweating, in your mind you're thinking, geez, how I wish I can be home now to take a bath. And this anticipation of a cool, nice bath just builds up in you, and you are just wanting to take a bath. So you quickly drive home, you're in a rush, you cut all the cars, your anticipation is growing. Then you open the door to your house, and the anticipation grows and grows and grows. Then you can grab your clothes, in a rush. Then you bash into the toilet and you lock the door, and you're tearing off all your clothes already. You're like, really waiting to take a bath. You're so much anticipation. Then you turn on the shower, and the water hits you. The first time the water hits you, and you're just flooding your body with the water. Wow, rapture. Raptures like that. You give it maybe about 30 seconds to 1 minute, the initial rapture fades away. You're left with this feeling of ease, this sense of ease and comfort that the world is so nice and placid and calm and so pleasant in a very pleasant, calm, pleasant. Wow, that is the bliss, sukha. So one can receive piti and sukha. And as I described just now, piti is like this, sukha is this calm placidness. So even before reaching the third jhana already, one can, as one checks the jhana factors and one feels and probably listens to talks like this or talk to other meditators, you can really get a fair difference and appreciation of the difference between rapture and bliss. Now we go on the fourth jhana. With the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, one enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. So this is the fourth jhana. The fourth jhana is described as the peak of mindfulness. The translation here is purity of mindfulness, and parisuddhi is the term. That actually also means the peak, the highest level of mindfulness. And in the fourth jhana, there are only two factors. From the third jhana, there's bliss and one-pointedness of mind. For the fourth jhana, the bliss is changed into equanimity, neutral feeling, equanimity, and one-pointedness of mind remains. And this one-pointedness of mind has definitely more depth than the previous one-pointednesses of mind in the other previous jhanas. So equanimity and one-pointedness of mind are the two factors of the fourth jhana. The fourth jhana is also the peak of mindfulness. And many teachers would say that, well, you can reach the fourth jhana, good, that's more than good enough to do your wisdom practices. Your mind is the clearest, brightest, sharpest at the fourth jhana as compared to the other previous three. And psychic powers also are usually, if you want to learn psychic powers, the best to start with is the fourth jhana. Your mind is enough stillness to walk on this psychic power path. That's found in the Visuddhimagga, and many other modern day teachers teach. You want to learn psychic powers, go to fourth jhana first, then you start to develop all this flying through the air, go through the earth, reading people's minds, and so on and so forth. And apparently from one teacher I've talked to, in the previous jhanas, one cannot visualize the beings clearly. Meaning if you shine your light of the previous lower jhanas to the heavens, the hell realms, you can't really see them or perceive them clearly. You perceive an overall, but it's not very clear. In the fourth jhana, it's very clear. You can perceive individual hell beings, individual devas very clearly. So the clarity of mind differs as well in various jhanas. That being said, I'm not saying that one has to reach fourth jhana to practice wisdom. Not all of us will be in trouble, so it'd be hard to get there, right? So, many teachers teach minimum first jhana. After first jhana come out, your mind is at least, there's a light of concentration that can be used to shine onto reality. Then you can see through things, you see. That's the basic idea. But if you really cannot even reach first jhana, actually excess concentration is enough. Excess is what we call just before the first jhana. Excess is also called neighborhood of the first jhana kind of concentration. So there's also light, but it's not as stable as the first jhana. The first jhana is really there all the time, but the excess is like there, not there, but it's quite strong already. So if out of the 40 objects of meditation I described just now, quite a number of them do not get you to even the first jhana. They get you at best to excess or neighborhood of first jhana. But if you're already that inclined and your mind ripens at that time, you can also use this excess concentration to practice wisdom. But most teachers, at least the teachers I've talked to, say don't be content with excess. You should make your mind more firm and steady in at least the first jhana. They can use that to practice wisdom after that. So that's the advice, at least in this current day and age in our generation. The teachers I've talked to give the same advice. First jhana first. Because if you can practice meditation, if you're seeing progress, and if you understand the suttas, if your mind is at least intellectually not deficient, you're quite sharp, you have enough wisdom, enough potential to reach the first jhana already, even if you think you're very far away. So don't just stop at excess. Carry on. Make your mind firm in the first jhana. Have faith that you can do it. The teacher will always encourage you, have faith. You come to me because you have enough wisdom to look for me in the first place. You have enough wisdom to recognize what the books are all about. You have enough wisdom to recognize the value of meditation. Surely you can make it to first jhana. Let me help you. So they encourage you and at least get you to that stage. Okay. Before I end off this talk, I want to talk about my experience of equanimity. I think equanimity is something that's very hard to describe. What's this? Neither pain nor pleasure, very impartial, neither tending towards favoring or hating, very impartial and neutral. It's very hard to describe this kind of state. Loving kindness is kind of easy. The way the mother loves her child, that's at least a good starting point. Compassion, seeing the suffering other beings, the wish to alleviate the suffering. Altruistic joy is this rejoicing in the goodness, in the good karma experienced by beings. That's still, but equanimity is one of those things that's quite hard to grasp. I don't know whether my explanation of this will make it easier or more confuse you all more, but this is a very interesting experience I've had with equanimity. Unfortunately, I cannot be 100% sure this is really equanimity, but when I described it to my friend who had experienced fourth jhana, she said she understood what I was talking about. She said that is equanimity. So I was quite encouraged by that lah. What happened was I was on pilgrimage. So I say pilgrimages are very earth-shaking experiences for anyone who goes. I was in Kushinara, the place where the Buddha passed away. And then from the morning that I woke up, I already felt this sense of stillness. And I was a bit surprised, why so still? And as the hours went on, I felt that the stillness was so strong, so thick, that I could literally cut through it with a knife. It's almost like a real stillness, you know. And everything around me, I could still perceive things clearly. I was not in a dazed or sleepy state, but everything was very clear. I mean, I'm perceiving all of you now, but it just feels so rocky, so solid. Everything is just the same. I can perceive differences, but everything just feels in quality like the same. It's like rock solid, you know. The whole day was like that. And then that was the most otherworldly experience I ever had. In my entire life, in all my meditation, I have not experienced anything like this. Because even in my best of meditations, it's still pre-first jhana, before first jhana, even at my best. And pre-first jhana, there must be piti sukha, there must be rapture and bliss in there. That rapture and bliss, that happiness, is the glue that sticks your mind onto the breath, that generates the nimitta. So I've always, when I'm being still in meditation, I can feel the happiness underneath it, fueling it. I can feel it. So to experience a state of stillness, which has not even the tiniest flicker of happiness in that stillness, is something completely out of this world. It's like an alien feeling, almost as if I've been possessed by somebody else completely. It's completely a unique, unexpected mind state, never experienced before in my entire life. So that was still the most amazing experience to date I've had. You know, that's completely out of this world, that's completely alien to my entire mental experience this lifetime. So equanimity can feel like this. Or some people say that equanimity feels like 人人皆佛, everybody is a Buddha. It's not just the words, but the feeling when you just perceive, yeah, everybody's the same, everybody can be a Buddha. Everything is the same, rock solid, same. My friend used the word like a rock. And when she said it, I was like, exactly the adjective that I felt. I never thought of it as a rock before. I first thought of it as something so still, so thick that I could cut from it. When she said like a rock, then it just struck me, yes, it's exactly like that. It's solid steel, you know. So I was like, wow, that's interesting. So that's probably equanimity in a way, you know, to some extent. Without being in the jhana, that's more or less some like equanimity. Okay, now it's 9:05. I think I've talked long enough and confused you enough with the 4 jhanas and all the mental factors of the jhanas. So, any questions you all want to ask me?
Shall we say sadhu sadhu for the very interesting and inspiring talk? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, any...
Okay. For your talk, this is my second visit. Last time we were talking about those 放假图道立地成佛. Remember?
I remember you came and asked a question. I can't remember what the question was, but I know you came before and asked. You're sitting there, you asked a question. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, today I got a very refreshing knowledge from you about this whole meditative process. I have read books, but then as we read books, sometimes we just jump from pages to pages. You know, I don't read like completely. Sometimes you read the back, read the front, read the middle, that kind of thing. Okay, for my own meditative experience, I came from Ngee Ann Polytechnic. I went to the Buddhist Society in 1979. Okay, there I actually practiced chanting meditation. Okay, so we just sit down and just chant and concentrate on the light. You know.
Concentrate on the what? Candle flame or?
Yeah, on the light, on the candle flame, and it will grow bigger and bigger.
Okay.
For 10 years, I tried that.
Okay.
It always became darkness, complete darkness. I cannot get the brightness of the candle. Okay, then after that, I managed through one so-called good faith on the newspaper advertisement. There's this term called alpha meditation. Okay, alpha meditation, I went for it, and in just one sitting, okay, it has a breakthrough that I never felt. And this one is like what the Buddha had teach on the breathing technique. So it concentrates on the rise and the fall of the breath. Okay, the process of this alpha meditation, actually the first stage concentrate on counting 10 to 1. As you breathe, you concentrate 10 to 1. And then when you reach 1, you actually propel yourself into a state of experiencing the 5 senses. It means you continue to say until you count to 1. Then the teacher will ask you to imagine yourself in Genting Highland or in where, and you feel and go and feel all the 5 senses: taste, smell, breath, whatever, you know, the 5 senses. That's the first practice. So really, it works well, you know. Then after that, it goes into passing through corridor, looking at the pictures on the walls, going through a lift, and then you see the lift going down to counting the numbers again, and then you reach the main hall. You walk through the main hall, you see a dome, and you see a very high ceiling, and then go right in the middle of the hall, and then feel the energy of the light going through your body. Imagine that, through imagination state.
Sure.
And then as you do that, you know, it works, really. And then you feel the refreshing so-called imaginative state. After that sitting, just within the day only, okay, then the actual meditation will be the rise and fall.
Oh, so you use that whole visualizing technique in the beginning. Then after that, the
beginning.
rest of the day is back to the breath.
Breath and back to the breath.
Just breath again.
So, but then before you actually go into breath, you have to do the counting. 2, 3, 4 up, 2, 3, 4 hold, 2, 3, 4 down, 2, 3, 4 hold. That means you are actually the actual term is called rhythmic alpha meditation.
Yes, rhythmic.
Rhythmic. Yep. So once you go into that level, you are able to later on no need to count anymore. You just follow the rhythm.
Yes.
Okay. After that one sitting, instead of darkness, I see tables and chairs flying over my mind.
Okay.
So after the table and chair flying over, it completely so-called still off.
Good.
And this purplish cloud appear.
Okay.
You see, and it just float around as though you are.
But at that time, were you watching a particular object? Were you watching your breath, or were you just in a free flow state, the free association state? So in that state, you can. Okay.
So you are just concentrating on your breath. So this cloud thing comes in. You as though you are in a cave that is very dark, and you're looking out of the cave, a small hole, and then in a very dark cave. And then you're looking out, and then this cloud in front of you, purplish, bluish, floating. It's not pulsating.
Sure.
But it's like, you can see the edges. It's like cloudy. And from then on, it's always like that. Then in between this process, I went to this the Ponggol Fu Hui Jiang Tang. Ponggol, the Green Temple, where this Yan Pei Fa Si. Okay, never mind. So there is a meditating so-called session. So I sat about half an hour. After half an hour, I feel body spinning. That means as you sit, your body starts to spin. Then my wife was beside me, also learning. So she felt the spinning and she stopped me in her meditative level also. She was sitting beside me.
Yeah, she felt you. She didn't really see you.
Yeah,
she felt you. She felt you spinning next to her. And she
called me.
She called you, as in she called you with a mind-to-mind connection, or she tapped your shoulder.
She tapped my shoulder. And I woke up. At that precise moment when I woke up, I was about to turn upside down.
So your body was already changing already Actually, at that time, even before she hit you, you were already, your body was a bit.
And then at the moment when she touched me, I was about to turn upside down. I got a fright out.
Okay.
So that is the most physical experience that I had until today. Even just now, as I sat down, immediately we go into see this cloud state. Okay. So only from this on your explanation, then I said, oh, okay, these are probably the various stages of meditation.
Ajahn Brahm emphasizes that physical sensations like this may be interesting, but they should be abandoned. They are a sign of concentration improving, mindfulness improving. So good, give yourself a pat on the shoulder. Yes, there is mindfulness, there is concentration there, but do not dwell on this body. The body is very interesting. Your body spins, body moves, body expands, swell. All kinds of phenomena are possible. All kinds of colors, lights, visions of the mind are all possible. Simplify it. Go back to your breath, or go back to your loving kindness. Simplify. Know the wisdom to know what that one single object is. Go back to it again and again and again, and let the nimitta and the jhana develop from there. So you must ask yourself, when you do this kind of practice, what is your objective of the practice? If your objective is to experience sensations, then you're already doing that. But if you want to experience a powerful enough concentration that can create and generate a jhana that can let you see through to enlightenment, then what you're doing will be a stagnation. If you dwell in this body sensation, it's going to be a stagnation. You have to bring it back to that simplified object. Be very clear. Is it the breath? Is it loving kindness? Is it what of the 40 objects of meditation you are doing? So again, very good. There is concentration, there is mindfulness, but you must be clear about your objective. If you want to develop concentration that goes on to wisdom and nibbana, you have to move beyond the physical sensation and bring it all back to the object and bring it back to the mind itself. But otherwise, it's good. It shows you, now you see for yourself the power of the mind, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's more to it after that.